Hi. It's a pleasure to be here. I do want to tell a little bit of the Izze story, but I really want to put it in a broader context. I think it's really about, to me, social enterprise and socially aligned businesses as an interesting cultural metaphor, but also at the end, I think there ought to be a little challenge for everybody here. I think there's a new power in being able to vote with our dollars in the consumer market, but I'll touch on that as we get there. I think the reason, though, I believe that there is this new power is it starts with sort of how we've evolved and how important businesses have become in our society. I'm not necessarily proud of this. I don't think it's a great sign, but it is true. Private enterprise has eclipsed most other bodies in our society. If you think, for me, the metaphor is sort of not that long ago, the biggest building in town was a church, usually of some sort of steeple. Then shortly thereafter, it was a municipal building, maybe the town hall or a school. But now it's clearly, a private enterprise. So to me, there's a responsibility that comes with that. So where's all this power? How's it being used properly? I think there's some interesting things that we as consumers can do to drive some innovation there. I also want to talk a little bit about sort of philanthropy. Tanya touched on that. I came from a town where philanthropists were rich people who wore ascots, and they were, they sort of gave back. It was kind of part of the deal, right? And I thought that was amazing and cool, and I thought someday, if I could, I would absolutely do that. And I was with my parents over Thanksgiving, and my mom reminded me of the story. I completely forgot it, but the first lawn I ever mowed in 6th grade, I came home from Mrs. Frary's proudly waving my $5 bill, and sent it immediately off to the Jacques Cousteau Society. Which she was surprised, and I didn't really remember. Obviously, I knew he was cool, right? I mean, he was like the coolest guy ever, but I did remember the T-shirt. So my suspicion is it was really about the T-shirt, and I did wear it for a long time. But I think that idea, sort of that seed, if you will, was planted at that moment. But still, these are two separate things. You sort of make money over here, and then you give it away here, and that's the way philanthropy worked, at least in my life. I sort of grew up, had a job where I made money, and on the other side had a nonprofit that helped start and with my wife and run over here. So that's just kind of how it worked until I discovered the natural products industry, really. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and there's a ton of these really great little companies that align themselves sort of socially. I think for the most, if you go down the aisles of a natural foods store, you can see a lot of kind of non-profit alignment. It's typically sort of ecologically focused, organic farming. If you remember, sort of in the late 80s, there was tons of kind of like Save the Rainforest Association, and that was absolutely fascinating to me. I thought, there's an industry here that's kind of melding these two things together. That was very inspirational for me. And I got sort of excited and started reading all these books on the topic and studying some of these brands. I'm sure you recognize them, things like Ben & Jerry's, Whole Foods. These are sort of the pioneers of this concept. My favorite, though, I think was Patagonia, and it didn't come from food. And that's when I sort of realized this is bigger than the little hippie co-op in Boulder, and people are doing this, and they're doing it well. You start to kind of spend a little time thinking about what really works, and next thing you know, I wanted to try it out. I mean, this is sort of how Izze started. So the theory was, it's like good karma, right? You're doing the right thing, and people will like you, and maybe buy more of your product. It sounds sort of funny and it's easy to laugh, but if you really boil it down, I started thinking, geez, how much money is being spent on advertising in our culture, where we live? it's billions of dollars, and that's basically just the same message over and over again. Like me. I mean, it could be for every reason you can think of. It's, like me because I'm pretty, like me because I'm fast, like me because I'm cool, whatever it is. And I just sort of thought, if they just took a small percentage of that money they're spending asking us to like them and did something likable, maybe you could get a little bit more bang for your buck, right? So I think there really is, a very strong and fundamental business rationale to do this. And again, going back to this sort of asymmetric power that business has right now, it could be kind of big and exciting. So that's what we sort of set off to do with Izze. As the story goes, it was started as a way to raise money for this nonprofit that my wife was running at the time called Global Education Fund. It was a very standard sort of portion of proceeds concept. I think even at the beginning we did a portion of profitability, which is a little trick for the little companies because there was no profitability. So it was just kind of the standard relationship. You see them all the time. And I think it was in that first year we took the kids. I have 2 little girls. We took them down to one of the projects. We do this every once in a while, and this one was down in Honduras. We'd been working with this cluster of orphanages down in Honduras for years, and I'd known about the project and worked on it, and got down there, and I was totally surprised because it was on a Dole banana plantation, and it sort of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, well, I mean, obviously we didn't have a Izze, a banana flavored Izze. I don't even think you could make one of those, but it sort of struck me that there was a most likely a similar socioeconomic dynamic going on in the places where we were buying fruit. And I came back very, very excited. I thought, well, this is really it. This is how we can take this idea of our corporate philanthropy and start to weave it into the fabric of the brand, which I think is the key. This is sort of where the thinking for me at least started. That if you have this nonprofit association that's just coming from some founder who cares about something, it's not part of the product. It's not part of what people are buying. It's just sort of a feel good at the end. It's a little thank you kiss on the way out the door, right? But if it's actually sort of woven into the fabric of the brand, part of what people are buying, then it can be truly sustainable. And that, I think, is the absolute goal. This is something that is mostly theory, I should say. I think that there are very few examples of this actually work or being tested. I shouldn't say working. I think there's a lot of really cool associations out there, but to actually test the concept, I mean, sort of pull it away. I can only think of one, and it was Ben & Jerry's. Unilever bought that company and tried to take away their giving program, and consumers stood up and said, no, that's part of what we're buying. Otherwise, it's Haagen-Dazs. I mean, it has been tested, it has been proven, but it hasn't scaled. And that's really sort of I think the call to action, if you will, towards the end of this. But I do kind of want to go back to the Project Reach is what happened when we got back from Honduras. So I come back, I'm all excited. I got my team there, they're all working hard. I said, look, stop what you're doing. We got a new idea. We're going to start working with the farm workers who are producing the fruit that we are putting inside of this bottle. And everybody kind of stared at me and said, well, where do we even buy our fruit? I said, well, somebody must know that here. I don't. And so it started us on a path of completely transforming the way we're doing our business. As it turns out, nobody knew where we were buying our fruit. We were buying it at a spot market, and it was coming in jugs, and it would be delivered to a plant someplace, and I never saw it. And we changed everything that day. We started spending time with the farm, on these farms, with these farm workers. For me, it was awesome. I got to learn about fruit and fruit production. I can identify a few different varieties of apple trees now, and I understand that lemons coming from China aren't good, and lemons coming from California are better. It was really kind of cool for me to get engaged in my product in a totally more intimate way. It also gave a chance for our employees to get involved, because the other side of the story is I came back, my wife said, well, that's great, but I'm not doing the work. If you guys want to start doing Global Education Fund stuff where you're buying fruit, that's up to you. You have to do it on your own. So we did, and that changed the work environment. We didn't need a ping pong table for team building. We were packing books and all involved and touched it. And as a result, like, people started talking about it internally, and then they would talk about it again when they're at a sales meeting or something. And it really did, I think, start to become part of the fabric of the brand. I think that we didn't really get a chance to fully prove the idea out. Pepsi came along and bought the company, which was it was difficult. That was a big and hard time for me personally, going through that process. But I can tell you honestly that Pepsi has been great. They continue to support the work we're doing with Global Education Fund. I'm I'm probably as surprised as some of the people here that has come to fruition. But I think that they recognize that that's part of what is inside that bottle, is this association with these farm workers. I could go into detail on the Project Reach thing, but I want to move towards sort of the challenge, and I do it with a little bit of a story. So this process of selling your business, if anybody's done this before, it is exhausting. It's brutal. I mean, I was obsessed with just trying to make things right for all the people who are involved, and it's a very difficult thing. Emotionally, absolutely beaten up. So we finally get this thing finished off. We're done, and I just happened to have been scheduled the day that the deal was announced to give a talk about sort of corporate alignment with nonprofits at Naropa University. Does anybody here know Naropa University? Well, for those of you that don't, this is a Buddhist-inspired university in Boulder, Colorado, that absolutely has to have more sort of dreadlocks and piercings per capita than any place, or certainly any institution of higher learning, no question about it. So I just thought, I cannot believe this is happening. I'm going to get crucified. Here it is, front page of the paper, and I'm standing up there, and I give my talk. I'm exhausted. My eyes are red, and I'm just waiting for it to finish up. Any questions? Wham! How can you trust Pepsi to keep this going? I was like, and I knew it was coming, but I didn't prepare. I just didn't know what I was going to say, and I kind of stopped and thought, I don't, but I hope I don't have to. What I do trust is their ability to meet consumer demand. They're an engine at that. They have stats and really smart people in rooms trying to figure this stuff out. So all of a sudden, that's when it occurred to me that it's kind of our responsibility to make this, to carry sort of this on. And it was a great way to kind of flip the conversation and put it back on the kids at Naropa, because it really is our responsibility. We have the information at this point. We're at an unprecedented time of transparency. The internet has created something that is amazing. We can share our thoughts on these things. We can do the research and figure it out. I think that we also have sort of an unprecedented level of skepticism around these things too. So, melding those two issues together, I think really are what's at the core of these sort of socially aligned businesses. They accept that. They know that people are skeptical. They know that they can find the truth, and they know that they will. They'll follow these breadcrumbs. And that's really kind of what I realized at the end of Izze, that if you leave these breadcrumbs along and trust that people will follow them to some degree or another, and you give them something, sort of a good news at each stop along the path, something to encourage their intuition, then it can result in an incredible amount of loyalty, which was a surprise to me. That's the sort of show don't tell part, which is, this is going to be hard to read, but this is what I wanted to kind of sum up with, that this idea of drawing people in and having a real relationship with them as a brand felt like a very unique experience for me. But I want to challenge you all to think about voting with your dollars this way. It does make a big difference. We can have an impact that surpasses everything Wall Street could possibly do. And I've seen it. We have proof now. I mean, look what happened to Enron. The news broke and they were out of business. That is democracy at its finest. So please, think about how you spend your money, do a little bit of research, and be proud of making the right decisions. Thank you.